Hello, and welcome to the Wade Borth podcast. I'm your host, Wade Borth, and in every episode, my goal is to get you to think differently about how money works and ultimately to empower you to take control of your money and your personal financing system. Do you have an estate tax problem? Most people say no. I don't make that much money. I don't have that much net worth. But let me tell you, you might not have an estate tax problem today, but you could. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit today. And it's, again, I'm not a tax expert. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not a CPA. But again, I'm smart enough we can read. And if we can read and we can educate ourselves, we can understand what's going on. Now, to implement these things, definitely going to have to involve some experts. But I want you to think about this for a little bit. Back in 2018, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, the TCJA, again, which comes out of Washington, it's always funny how they put acronyms around that. But they created tax changes for corporations and individuals. But they didn't sign the tax laws, the changes for the individuals were never signed into law. The ones for corporations were. So it takes Congress an act to change that and to move that to a different direction. But what they did with the 2018 Tax Cut Act was they put a sunset provision. And part of that sunset provision, and what a sunset provision says is that, hey, at the end of this time frame, which is end of 2025 tax season, or once you get into 2026, these new laws are going to be impacting you. And this is crazy. So you might have a tax issue today. You might not have a tax issue on the end of December of 2025. But January 1, this could force you into having an estate tax issue. So I've spent some time looking at this as we're trying to talk with clients and prepare them for what's coming down the pike. Okay, so what I want to do is try and make this real simple when it comes to estate tax. Again, the estate tax exemptions and what's going to be happening with the sunset provisions coming in 2025. Again, there's a lot of ways we can complicate this, but again, what I really want you to start doing is thinking about how this is impacting you. How is this alignment with your values? And what could we be doing to avoid one of the biggest wealth destroyers? Again, income taxation, it happens every year, and you can see it and fight it every day. But estate taxes only happen at death. And so this is why I think it's one of the most insidious taxes, because you're not there to fight it. You're gone. So you have to plan with what we know today. Now, they might make changes in the next couple of years to this, but here's what we know today. Again, I've said this before, but in 2025, if you have a $12 million estate as an individual, you die, there's no tax. There's no estate tax on that. First day of 2026, now you have a huge estate tax bill. So what are we planning to do for it? And what's happening? So again, today, if you are worth $12 million as an individual, you die, there's no estate tax. So that limit right now is a little over $12 million. Most people are going to say, oh, that's not me. And that's probably right for most people. But you have to realize that with the price of property, if you own rental properties, if you own farmland, if you own a business, you might not think that you have an estate tax issue. You might not. But let's have that discussion. Reach out to me. Let's have a long-term discussion about what's our plan for the future here. Because again, we want to think, one of my real goals is to think intergenerationally. How am I providing wealth today for my clients? But more importantly, what are we doing to set up our next generations to not be in a position to start over? We want our next generations. And part of that is education. And part of that is having an understanding what you believe now and what you want to educate them on. But what are we going to do to set them up without giving all our money away? And again, it's not always about money. It's more about values. What are you teaching? What are you passing on for values? And then how can we use those dollars? Think about if we could, if we're going to give away $3 million, would you rather have your family giving that away to something that they know and believe and understand for a cause? Or would you rather have the government deciding where that money goes? You might think, hey, I don't want my kids to have all this money because it causes a problem. Well, then let's find the way that you can give that money to a cause and a charity or someplace that you want to be involved with, that you can directly give to it versus giving it to the government and letting them decide where they give it to. Again, aligning our actions with our values. That's really what we're talking about. So going back to the state tax exemption in 2026, that $12 million of exemptions, what that means is you have that $12 million exempt from estate tax. Anything over that is going to be subject to estate tax. January 1st of 2026, at least as the law is written now, that estate tax exemption is going to go back down to about $6 million, basically be cut in half. And again, You might think I don't have a problem at 12, but let's take this out. You got 3 or 4 years to grow with property values, with rental property values, with business values, whatever it is. If you're successful in growing, hopefully that's the number you want to aspire to. You want to get to that position. But just through inflation, just through really nothing that you're doing, sometimes will push that price up there. And I think the government kind of counts on that. And then in one day, that's going to be cut in half, that exemption. Now you might have the problem that you didn't have the day before. I got an estate worth $6 million for an individual. And now anything above that is going to be taxed at a very high rate. Back in the day when I was first starting to look at estate taxes, these were at 50% or 45% rates on anything, the $1 over that limit, over that exemption limit. So anyhow, the point I would make here is, are we planning? Do we have opportunities to take that exemption, that amount that we have, and maybe give it away? Give it away to the future generations. Give it away to a trust, whatever it might be. Give it away to another asset like a life insurance policy that will enhance your estate versus, decimating your estate. And what's nice about this is that there was a law passed, the IRS passed a regulation, or issued a regulation, it wasn't passed, to prevent clawbacks of your lifetime gifts that you make. Let's say you have $12 million today. What if we gift $6 million of that to a trust or to a family limited partnership? But there's a lot of different things. Again, I'm not an attorney. I just can read and understand a little bit about these things. And when we get to the point where we want to implement these things, we definitely are going to have to get somebody that's an expert in this area involved. My job is just to get you started down that path, start to have you think about, there are opportunities where I can, impact my family and in those organizations that I truly love and believe in much better than the government can do that. So I would just encourage you to think about what's going to happen in 2026, January 1st of 2026. And are you taking advantage of all the opportunities you have between now and then to mitigate this? It's a huge risk. It's a huge wealth destroyer. And again, there's opportunities right now that we can take advantage of. And we have to reach out to me at Wade at Sage Wealth Strategy, or give me a call, hop on our website, book an appointment. Because again, it starts with a conversation. It starts with us understanding and realize what's going on, and then say, okay, how can we implement a plan? Who can we work with to start implementing a plan to make this thing happen? So again, you might not think that you don't have a problem today, but again, just with the strike of the top of the hour on New Year's Day, you might have a problem. Just that simple. Unless barring any regulations or any tax law going forward. Now, I don't see the Congress today having any appetite to take this thing on. It would have to come together and actually have conversations in Washington, and that's just not happening. So this, to me, is, again, right now I look at it as like, we know this is the case. Something might happen in the future, and we can't plan for what might happen. We have to kind of plan for what we know is going to happen, or at least know what's on the books right now. Because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, that's for sure. But we know what's on the books right now. And that's what the plan is for the government to change those rates on the 25th. End of 2025, they're going to change these rates. And if it happens, what have you done to plan for it? And what can we do to mitigate it and actually maybe even benefit from those changes? Maybe there's even something good that can come out of this. So again, I encourage you to reach out to me and let's have a discussion. And let's find a team. Let's put together a team that can help you mitigate this issue and make your estate plan something that really needs to be. If you're enjoying this podcast or know anyone else that might be interested, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and please leave a review. This will help this podcast reach and help more people by ranking higher in searches and ultimately help more people get out of financial bondage. And don't be afraid to share this podcast with your friends and family, as we can be easily found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.